La Paule is a family theme park and wildlife park located smack dab in the middle of France. The park is about a half hour away from Moulins and Digoin, an hour and a half away from Clermont-Ferrand, and 2 hours from Lyon. So it's pretty central even though it's not directly next to a major city. They opened their doors in 1973 as a zoo, but didn't start adding rides until 1981. Their oldest roller coaster opened in 1990, with their newest roller coaster opening earlier this year. They have a total of 5 roller coasters, and that's part of the overall 31 different attractions that they offer. But that pales in comparison to the 1,000 animals that they have on site. This includes tigers, lions, zebras, elephants, giraffes, meerkats, rhinos, you name it, it's here. There are so many different exhibits with various feedings throughout the day, shows, educational presentations. There is a lot to see at this park. They are way more than just the rides. I visited La Paule for my first time in the summer 2023. I ended up doing half a day here because I ended up splitting my time between here and Vulcania. It was just due to time constraints. In the future, I think I would dedicate a full day to La Paule. I'll admit our visit here was a little rushed. We spent more time focusing on the rides instead of the animals. We elected to knock out the park's 4 operating roller coasters at the time, as well as some of their more unique attractions. Although ironically, we somehow completely missed their dark ride, and I feel really bad about that one. They have an indoor shooting dark ride, which looks like a lot of fun. I normally always want to do those. So the reality is there's a lot to see here, and everything that I got to experience was great. And my first impressions of the place was, wow, we are literally in the woods. There are so many trees here. It is heavily wooded. You can't really see where you're going. There will just be pathways where there are no rides or attractions. You're just taking a stroll through the woods and hoping that you eventually run into something. This was one of those parks that I absolutely had to consult a park map for because I had no idea where I was going. And I couldn't see anything because none of the rides show up above the tree line. So yes, it is very easy to get lost here. This park is big. It's 123 acres or 50 hectares, and I found that most of the rides were clumped together, but those clumps were heavily spread out from each other. So there's a good handful of rides on the left side of the park, but then if you want to ride their main roller coaster, Yukon Quad, and visit the Canadian section, you have to go to the exact opposite right side of the park. And there's not a lot of rides between them. You might find some play structures or a couple animal exhibits, but that's it. It also amazed me how quiet this park can get. It was just very atmospheric. Entire areas where there's no theming, it's just you walking in the woods. You don't hear screams from roller coasters or anything. So let's talk about some of those rides. The first roller coaster we did was called Azteca. It's a Soquet mine train, which at this point in time we had done a couple of. I think I ended up preferring the one at Parc du Bacchus in northern France more so than this one, but it was still pretty cool, surrounded by trees, lots of helices, very family friendly. If you haven't noticed, this is absolutely a family park, so even their most thrilling ride like Yukon Quad is still going to be relatively mild in comparison to some of the thrill rides that you might find at other theme parks. Now, Azteca was also the first roller coaster we encountered that was on one train. In fact, all of the roller coasters here were on one train, at least during our visit. I don't know if that is normal here, but it did make some of the lines kind of lengthy. We ended up having skipped the lines, so we would walk up to the station through a separate entrance, and that was a big time saver. I think the only one that ended up being a walk-on was Twist, which is a mock ride spinning coaster. If you've done Dwarvelwind at Toverland, this is an exact clone of it. Just less themed. It's in an African section, really tucked back there. It's a fun ride, nothing too crazy. Actually, the ride directly next to it stood out more in our minds. It is called King Kong. You board in this truck, and then King Kong lifts you up in the air and shakes you around a little bit, gently rocking back and forth. It's very weird and very random. I know that this is not unique to just La Paule. I remember seeing one at Bobbejaanland in Belgium, but it was closed, so I wasn't able to experience it. So this was my first time doing a ride like this, and it felt kind of pointless. I got off that and was like, what the heck was that? A meme. That's what it was. It was a meme. And finally, the other big ride in this plaza is a Zamperla disco, which there's a bunch of well-themed discos in Europe, and this is not one of them. So if you frequent a lot of parks, this is probably a ride to skip. It's just plop down, nothing to it. But if you keep walking around, you'll encounter our next roller coaster. It is called Siberian Tiger. It is a family coaster by Reversion. It wasn't really anything memorable, and this was an attraction that actually did not have a fast pass entrance. So even if you have it, you have to wait in the standby. But it was fine for what it is. rides. I mentioned their newest roller coaster. It's called Fjord Explorer. It's a Mock Rides water coaster. When we went, we got to see it under construction. That's going to be a great fit for this park. Even though they already have several water rides, I think a water coaster is going to be very nice. In walking around, we saw a log flume, a baby log flume. 2 water rides we completely missed seeing are a splash battle, as well as the scenic raft that goes out over a lake. And then finally, we did go right by their rapids. I know it can get hot in that area, so I bet that's very nice in the summer. Fjord Explorer, as you might be able to guess, is part of the Norway section. A lot of really charming buildings. And that goes for any of the theme sections that they have. One of my favorites was they had this like New England old colonial America town. There was a train station, some cute shops. We rode this monorail that took us all around the park, and you boarded it in this house. It literally looks just like a colonial house. It was awesome. And the view of the park and some of the attractions from there was fantastic. I love these rides. I'd love to see more of them at other parks. The last theme section that we really encountered was Canada. That's again on the other side of the park. That's where Yukon Quad is. That is by far our favorite ride in the park. Please go check out our already posted separate review on it if you'd like to hear more about what makes Yukon Quad so awesome. Because trust me, that alone made our visit to Lapal worth it. But Canada has very loose decor, especially when compared to some of the other sections, which are a lot more done up. And in general, Lapal isn't as elaborately themed as some other parks you might encounter in Europe. But it absolutely is still nice. Everything is very well laid out. It's clean. They definitely lean more into the nature side of things. Like even the front entrance when you're walking up isn't anything memorable. It immediately sets the scene for this just being a family-run park designed for just about anyone to enjoy. You can tell that the people who work here really care about this place. One of the things they claim is that they invest 25% of their revenue every single year on new attractions. So that's why the park is constantly growing. The park just feels huge, and I think so much of that is so that the animals have room to walk around. So to wrap things up, Lapal is a place that I very much enjoyed visiting. I was so glad I got to check it out. In comparison to some of the other parks we visited on this trip, I wouldn't say Lapal is as high of a priority for me to return to. As great as a new water coaster is, I don't think that is enough of a drive for me to return, but I absolutely do hope to go back one day. Just have a chill time, walking around. I'd love to stay on site. They have 2 different lodges on the African Savannah, and they sound awesome. It literally reminds me of the Animal Kingdom Lodge at Disney World. Like, that is so cool. As of now, they're the 6th most visited park in France, and with so many quality things for people to see and do, I imagine this is a big hit with locals. So let me know down in the comments below if you've had the opportunity to visit, if you agree with the points that I brought up, and of course stay tuned for more park reviews here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.